welcome back. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving if you're in the US, and I hope you've had a great weekend if you're not. And I hope that everyone is happy and healthy right now. And our family's doing pretty well. We just got done with our Thanksgiving break, so today my daughter's back at school. So far, so good. So we'll just keep hoping that everybody stays that way and just keep on keeping on, I guess. Today I wanted to share with you a writing board that I made. So basically what I'm doing here is I covered a piece of scrap cardboard with some packaging paper. You know that packaging paper that they put in boxes to take up some of the space so that your stuff doesn't move all around? I used that and I covered the cardboard from like ice cream boxes or cereal boxes, things like that. And then I just used my glue stick on that and covered everything up. And now what I'm doing is I'm collaging on the paper that I covered, and I'm just ripping up this paper from the kit that I've been using for these journals. And I'm just collaging, and what I'm basically doing is making a writing board, and then that's going to be used because sometimes those journals get kind of chunky, and the writing board will help to make it a little easier to write on. So you're not writing on a bunch of lumpy stuff. You can put this between the pages, and then it'll just give you a surface, something that's smooth to write on. So you can just see here, I'm just tearing up the papers that I like, and I'm inking around all the edges and then just gluing them down with my glue stick. And I think this works pretty well. It gives a really smooth finish. Even though you do have this collaging, the paper that I'm using is a thin copy paper, so it does make a very smooth image, or a smooth surface, sorry. I'm just using my Vintage Photo Distress ink, and it is the oxide ink. I really like that. It gives a little bit of a creamier look. Just kind of depends on what I'm doing and which one I will choose. And I'm just using an Uhu glue stick for this, and my little gift card there to smooth everything out. So I'll just keep doing this until I have the whole surface covered. And then what I end up doing at the end is I will go through and add some collage pieces, some fussy cut images out, just to cover up some of the seams and stuff, and hopefully to make it a little bit more cohesive looking overall. So you just kind of rip and tear and just keep gluing it down until you get what you like. And if you don't like something that you've glued down, you can just cover it up. It's no big deal. This is the nice thing about this kind of collage technique, is that if you don't like something, you just cover it up with another piece of paper. And that one I can see I forgot to ink, but no big deal. I'm just going to trim that edge off, and then I believe I ink around the entire edge of this piece of paper. Oh, yep, there I go. I realized I didn't ink it, so I did bring my brush in there and ink a little bit. So here's where I was talking about. I took some of these fussy cut images, and I'm going to put them in a couple different places just to cover up some of the seams and things where I thought it looked like it was a little awkward. And so I'm gonna put that little turkey image. And then I think I'm gonna put a leaf down at the bottom, towards the bottom. Just kind of playing around, see what I like. I'm gonna ink around the edges. Oh, I guess I don't put the leaf. Just making sure all the edges are staying down, and then I'm going to work on my second writing board. Again, the same exact technique that I just used, just ripping up the paper that I've printed off. This is just collage paper. I'm just ripping off the edges. I like the torn look, so I use my ruler to get some of those borders off. My printer, I cannot get to print borderless. Even though I pick borderless, it always prints with a border around it, so I'm not exactly sure. Obviously, it's just my printer, because I've tried a couple different settings on the printer and it doesn't seem to do any better. It seems like if I increase the percentage, like the image percent, it will go borderless, but then just kind of depends on what I'm printing. I don't always want to do that, because then it kind of distorts the image sometimes, or just makes it look a little pixelated. So I don't try to make the image too much larger, because it just doesn't always work very well. But I just get around that by just ripping them off like this with the ruler. Now this time I'm laying it out a little bit more before I glue everything down, just a little bit different way of doing it, just to make sure I like how the layout looks. And I'm liking that. Okay, I'm going to fiddle around with it a little bit, seeing if I want to move any of these pieces of paper around. So you can do it either way. You can just kind of glue and stick, or you can kind of lay out all of your papers first to see what you like the best. And just kind of depends on, what your style is. Sometimes like I said, I would go and just stick everything down like I did on the first one. And then sometimes I will lay it out a bit more. Just depends on what paper I have and what mood I'm in. Apparently this time I did a little bit of both. Just again, gluing or inking around all the edges. And then I will glue everything down with the glue stick. And I always glue bottom to top, so you want to make sure you get the ones that are on the bottom first so that your layers are the way you like them. I'm just using a glue book there, so my glue doesn't go everywhere all over my desk. And I always, like I said, smushing it down with my little card. So once I get all of this done, I will end up pulling out those fussy cut images again and deciding which ones I can put on what seams, again, just to give it a more cohesive look. I like how that looks if you have any awkward areas where the papers meet. Adding a little die cut on those areas really makes a big difference. So you can see I'm just smoothing that down, and then I'll trim around all the edges with my scissors. And now I'm pulling those die cuts out, and I'm going to put the leaves on this one. So that's why I was thinking leaves, but the leaves go on this one. And I have a couple different varieties in here, just figuring out which I think is going to look best. And I think these colors and everything look really nice with the papers that I used for the collage elements in the background. I thought that stem just wasn't going to work, so I got that removed, and I'm just going to use my glue stick and get these down. These are all printed on a copy paper, so they're relatively thin, so the glue stick works nicely on these. And I thought I needed just a little bit more. I wanted to break up that space on the right-hand side with that pumpkin paper. That's probably one of my favorite papers in the kit. I just thought it needed to be broken up a bit. It was a little bit too much, so I just grabbed this paper from the kit that looks like an old letter or writing. And I like how that kind of just, breaks up the space a bit more, and it gives a nice look. So those writing boards are done. Now I'm going to be moving on to these kind of long, skinny, maybe what you can call bookmarks. And I'm just going to be covering one side with the line paper, and then I'm going to cover the other side with just the pattern paper. So I'm just trying to figure out here how I want to do that. I am going to use that little sunflower in the bottom left and then the pumpkin in the bottom right, and I'm just going to turn them so that they will end up going on each of those strips. So you can see here, I'm just trying to figure out how I want that to look. First, I'm going to trim off all the white edges. This works pretty well with this ruler with the thinner paper, but when I have this thicker paper, which what this is, it's a little bit, I wouldn't say it's a cardstock, but it is a thicker paper. It does not tear as nicely, so I tend to just cut it with the scissors here. I was trying it out to see if it was going to cut out nicely with the ruler, but it just wasn't working. The copy paper works perfectly with the ruler. It's just, this cardstock is just a little bit thicker, and it just doesn't tear nicely. So I'm going to glue these two strips down so that I have the background with the lines so that it can be a place you can write on. And like I said, I'm moving it around so that the little pumpkin and or sunflower will be in the bottom corners of the little card. And I'm just using my gift card to smooth everything down, trim that out with my scissors. I will go in and ink around all the edges so that it has a finished look. And then I'm going to take this other strip again and put it over where the pumpkin is. Just making sure everything's good before I do that. Smoothing everything down. And then trimming everything out. Again, that is one of my favorite, that pumpkin paper is one of my favorite papers from the kids. So pretty. All right, now that I like how that looks, I am going to work on the rest of these. I do want to ink them up because, like I said, it gives it a nice finish. So I have the front side here where you do the writing, and then I have the back side. So now I'm just picking out two tabs that I could use. One I'm going to put at the top of the strip, and the other one I'm going to put on the side. These can be used as bookmarks or just little tuck spots, journaling areas, anything like that. Just kind of depends on how you want to use your journal. I'm just going to use some tacky glue here in my fine liner bottle to glue these tabs on. And like I said, this one's going on the top. I thought it needed a little bit of rounded edges, so I do round the top edges of this one before I stick it down. I almost glued it down, and then I decided, I think I need to do something else. And I like how that just gives a little bit of a more finished look there. And that's the tab on that one. The one with the sunflower is going to have a tab on the side rather than the top. Just making sure that's glued down real well. And then I decided only to add the rounded corners at the top. I didn't feel like it needed it on the bottom. Here I'm not going to round any corners on this one that I don't think so. And I'm just going to put this tab on the side. And then I want to work on the back here. This back side I did cover with that brown packaging paper that I covered the writing boards with. And I'm just going through my ephemera trying to figure out what I can use on the bottom of these. And I like these two little kids, or these three kids, I guess. The one image with the little kid's the pumpkin, and then the little kind of pilgrimy looking kid on the right. And I felt like I needed a little bit something more, but I just couldn't find anything that was going to work. So I'm going to just glue these little guys down right now. Use my glue stick again. This is the kind of copy paper, so the glue stick works really well with that thinner paper. And the Uhu seems to be a very strong glue. I just started using that not too long ago. It seems to be working pretty well for me. So now I am looking at these boards that I made, and you can see here this is another board. So I'm just kind of going through these and trying to figure out how I want to use them. So I decided to use these two that I had made earlier because I wanted to make sure they were going to fit in these albums that I made, or these journals. The two that I made on camera were a little bit too small, so I ended up going with the ones I had made off camera to make the writing boards. But I used the exact same technique. I just glued down different torn pieces of paper and then covered some of those awkward seam areas with the little die cuts. So you can see there, they're all cut. I did end up inking around all the edges, and then I sewed around all of the edges too. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Have a great day. Bye.